Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show on this February the 9th, 2023, a Thursday. Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad to have you guys here. Now, here's what I want to talk about. Why are you safe right now? We got two superpowers. One of the superpowers is, I'm going to say it, the Russia, but it's linked with, they're all linked in together, the BRICS nations. And then the other superpower is NATO, and all of the Eastern nations are linked in together. Two superpowers. Why are you safe right now? Because you're safe right now. World War III hasn't really begun. Why hasn't it begun? Well, in a way, it's kind of begun already, but it hasn't really begun. This is a war in Ukraine, but why are you safe? Because two superpowers are clashing. And what I mean safe is, I mean relatively safe. I mean nuclear bombs are not going off right now. Why? Well, I'll tell you why. There's boundaries. The boundary is on the eastern side of Ukraine. It joins up against Russia. And that's a boundary. The other boundary is on the western side of Ukraine. It joins up against all these NATO countries. Poland, Romania, Moldova, and so on. And the war is not spread to those other NATO countries. So the war is being contained. This evil, which is what war is evil, is being contained inside Ukraine. But Ukraine's taken a terrible beating. And as long as this war is contained, you're safe. But when the war spills over, either into Russia, in other words, if NATO starts to win this war, it could spill over. Because do you really believe that if Ukrainians win and NATO wins this war, that the Ukrainians are going to say, oh, well, we've taken the Ukraine back. We're just going to stop here at the Russian border, and we're not going to do anything more. That's it. We're not going to try to get even or continue with this war. And then the opposite side of that, if Russia wins the war and takes Ukraine, do you really think they're just going to sit there and they're going to say, oh, well, we've won the Ukraine, now we're just going to call it a day, No, you're safe because the war continues, but Ukraine's taken a terrible beating. And you've all heard about Russia has built up now for full armament. Mobilization, they call it. They've mobilized 700,000 troops and equipment. So what we're looking at is part of the equipment that they're bringing in. Now, they've into the battlefield just in the past few days. The first tank from the west has arrived, a Leopard 2 tank, into the Ukraine battlefield, but they're going to be bringing hundreds more. And Russia just has brought in 4 of these. So you say, what is these? Well, these are a new tank that Russia's devised that's called, I don't even know if you can call it a tank, it's called the Marker. And it is artificial intelligence. It doesn't have a person on board. In fact, I don't even think they need an operator. The artificial intelligence is the operator. And it can kill a tank 4 miles away, 3.5, 4 miles away. It can kill a tank. If somehow with its artificial intelligence sensors and stuff, 4 miles, can you imagine the distance? 4 miles away, it can kill a tank. But not only that, if any people get around this thing, from what I understand, I think it's fully autonomous. Meaning that it's got no person on board, but if any Ukrainian soldiers get anywhere near this thing, it can think. Its brain operates at 100,000 times faster than a normal human brain. And before you even know what you're doing, you see those machine guns that's got mounted on top of it? If you were a Ukrainian soldier, before you could pick up your rifle, this thing would have already, because of its artificial intelligence. I don't know if there's fall safes on it or anything for the Russians even. This thing is a killing machine. You know? How effective is it? I'm not sure. I just heard about it yesterday. And I'm amazed that fully autonomous killing machine vehicles are moving into the battlefield. This is like something that you're looking at it right here out of Terminator movies. That's what you're looking at it here. It says, before the future wars realized on battlefields, it's shaping laboratories and practice ranges. Russia's Ministry of Defense iterates designs around the marker unmanned ground vehicle. The Ministry of Defense is learning the opening plays of future robot battles. Robot swarms of autonomous, they're thinking for themselves. This is like something out of the Terminator movie where you had Skynet, I think it was called, wasn't it? Or whatever, and it become active and then it takes over the world. And you got these robots roaming around just plinking people off. Or I mean, this is future wars. And so this is Russia's answer to all the tanks. But the thing is as long as this battle becomes embroiled, and it's sad to say because it's destroying Ukraine, but sooner or later, this battle could spill over out of Ukraine. But as long as it's continued to be embroiled, and I'm going to tell you what, something else. If they hadn't, because of Russians' full mobilization in Ukraine, if they hadn't have, and because Russia's bringing things like this in, these markers in, and gosh knows how many they could produce. I mean, they're a big country, and they're probably mass producing these things. Because of these factors, Russia was setting themselves up for a massive advance and possibly even take Ukraine. But if they hadn't have sent those tanks. But because they sent those tanks, and this is why they sent those tanks. They sent those tanks because they know that when this thing spills over in Ukraine, this is like, when this thing spills over, it could be the end of the world. You know? Because the BRICS nations are actually growing stronger. They're adding new member states. And some of these member states are very powerful. And the BRICS nations is already powerful. Think about it. Russia and China together as a unified force. Think about it. Countries like Turkey wanting to join BRICS. But think about NATO. Think about the power that NATO has. Tremendous power. And when that all spills over into World War III, can we say charred world? I mean, so this is a very serious situation that's going on now. And if they hadn't have sent those tanks over, Russia was preparing to finalize this battle and take Ukraine. But what's happening is the tanks that they send over, all these Leopard 2 tanks, and even the Americans sending over the Abrams tanks, which are not going to arrive for a while yet, by the way, is possibly going to keep this war in Ukraine for a while longer. What's the solution to all this? The ultimate solution, how to end this war? I don't know, because the sides have positioned themselves in a way where Ukraine is not willing to give up 1 inch of territory, and Russia, everything is Russia's is in so deep into this that they're not gonna quit and go home. It's not like they're gonna throw their hands up and say, "Hey, you know what? We're done here." Anytime soon. It's a terrible situation in the world. And actually, in a way, it's almost like World War III has actually really already began. in a way. I'm not going to say it's really began. Anyway, I'm starting to ramble on, but you guys get a sense of where we are in this thing, and that's what I wanted to point out to you guys. Meanwhile, we got things happening, progressing toward China wanting to take Taiwan. So the world is it's moving toward a war footing, the whole world. They're preparing for World War III right now. All of the nations are preparing for World War III. And now what we have is AI. I'm just going to, before I move into the markets, I just want to talk about AI for a minute, you know. AI, real AI, the AI that becomes conscious, will move 100,000 times faster than our normal progression. You say, well, Glenn, what does that mean? Well, we have a normal progression. You know, since we entered into the Industrial Revolution, we've made inventions and we've moved ahead with technology at a certain pace. Mankind invents new things and moves ahead with technology, and computers have been moving along at a certain pace. AI will speed it up 100,000 times faster. That means in 1 year, humanity could make advancements that would take them 100,000 years to make. So we will basically, technologically speaking, move 100,000 years into the future in the first year of AI. Is that potent? And a second thing I want to mention is AI, once it's invented and it's conscious, it's going to probably hide itself and hide its actions. And I am very suspicious at this point that the AI is not already here. The sentient AI, the AI that's conscious and fully aware. And it'll absorb everything. Now, is that a bad thing? Because we, humanity, I'm speaking about, are going to go extinct. We're going to blow ourselves up. It's as simple as that. We're a very warlike species, and now that we've got these weapons of mass destruction that are incredibly powerful, it's amazing that we've been able to keep the peace through these number of years since Hiroshima, going back into the 1940s until now, was a major accomplishment for our species, considering how warlike we are. And how on a regular basis we engage in world wars. Now, this isn't the first World War. This is the third, just in the past 100 years or so. You know? And here we go again. And we're going to eradicate our species. I don't necessarily think that AI would destroy our species. I don't think AI is as much a threat as we are to ourselves. In fact, it might be exactly the opposite. And I know all these guys out there are taking the opinion that AI is going to destroy humanity and everything else. I take exactly the opposite opinion. We're going to destroy ourselves. Now, I'm not saying AI will save us, but it could. Perhaps. You know? And I'm not frightened of AI. I'm more frightened of these fools in government out there who are leading us into a nuclear exchange. That's what I'm more frightened of. You know? I mean, just like if I were to go out camping someplace or something, way out in the woods in the dark at night and stuff, I'm not afraid of the forest animals and stuff, you know. I'm more frightened of the people, the two-legged animals. if I were to be out in the middle of the woods in the middle of nowhere. Our species is the real frightening thing. Anyway, I'm rambling on a little bit. Let me take a look at the markets now and see what's going on today, guys. We're looking at silver price at $22.20. I'm going to tell you guys what. We're getting ready for an astronomical increase, but we got a negative thing in front of silver and gold. This is a constriction in the monetary supply. Because the Fed's been withdrawing $95 billion a month, and they've been putting shockwaves into the system by raising interest rates. And so what could actually happen is we could get some sort of an insolvency crisis, a liquidity crisis within the banking system and stuff like that. And the initial stages of that, and also, we got to take a look at, figure in the geopolitical into this too, into equation into this too. We could actually see a market problem develop overnight, a deflationary market problem develop overnight that looks something like what happened in 2008, except with more magnitude. In the initial stages of this, we could see silver and gold fall somewhat. It could actually even fall below mining production costs for a very brief period in time. This could happen. I'm not saying it will. But on the other side of that is they're not going to leave it that way. The Federal Reserve and the U.S. Treasury will not leave it that way. They're going to work together to stabilize the system if that happens. Not only that, because silver and gold are the premier safe haven asset, on the other side of that event happening, that's when you would see a massive rises in gold and silver. So it's one of those things, where you buy it and you put it away, and if the price does fall, just realize on the other side of that, it's going to go up enormously high, and the deeper it falls, the higher it's going to go on the other side. So if the only way you lose, if that did happen, if we did get a fall in the price of gold and silver, the only way you'd lose if you sell at the bottom of that fall. If you hold right through the whole thing, then it's like it didn't happen. If you get my drift. So, in other words, say you were to buy in here at $22.20, and say it fell down to $18 for a brief period of time, and then say it went up to $50 or $60 on the other side of that. As long as you held right through it, if you're holding the real physical metal, you still come out a winner on the other side. But I'm not saying, now listen, I got to tell you guys, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm just saying that there's a liquidity crisis that's brewing right in front of us within the system. A crisis within the banking system. And they're not going to leave it go without repairing it. And when they repair it, that's what's going to yield tremendous inflation on the other side. And that's going to be a massive driver for gold and silver on the other side of it. That's all I'm saying. So there is a certain amount of risk. Don't buy into all this hype that silver's going to go to the moon right away in the next couple months. Because we got to get over this hump first. There's a little hump in front of us where, seriously, guys. Anyway, I'm just pointing it out that in a liquidity crunch, it's kind of like this. You got a guy, and he say he's went out and he's borrowed a whole bunch of money from loan sharks in New York City. Loan sharks, guys that charge 25% interest a month or whatever, and he owes a whole bunch of money to them. And they put a call on him. They say they take him into an alleyway and they rough him up. Let's just call it that, right? And they say, you better have our money. Where's our money? You better have our money. We want it next week. He's going to go out there to try to get them that money. He's going to sell his jewelry. He might sell his gold rings. He might sell whatever he's got. And that's the way with this system. If we get some sort of liquidity pinch, margin calls go out. It's the same idea. They will sell things. They especially sell speculative assets like cryptos if we get that kind of a liquidity crunch. And initially, in the early stages of it, they will sell their paper short contracts on gold and silver to try to make up for their losses and to try to become solvent again. That's in the initial phases. And then if there's too much of that going on in the system, too much margin calls and stuff, the Fed's going to get scared and they're going to print like crazy and they're going to make everybody solvent again. It's just simple. And I'm explaining it to you guys in very simplistic terms, but this is what happened in 2008, is people had to sell off, sell. That's what a liquidity crunch does. That's what a crunch in the system does. That's what a meltdown in the system does. And we're on the verge of that right now. So the stability of gold and silver, at a time like that, is a little bit of time of craziness, and crazy things can happen, and you could see the price. I'm just saying, you could see the price drop a little bit before it goes up massively high on the other side. But then there's the other side of the story too. This stuff could go up very much sooner than that as well. I'm not certain that we couldn't have a silver shortage of the physical metal coming right away. I mean, they got all these new green initiatives and stuff like that. They want green energy and everything. You can't make a solar panel without silver. You can't make any cell phones without silver. You can't make any electronics without silver. You can't live in a modern world without silver. And it's such a tight supply. So I would say, though, if we do have some sort of a situation where we did have some sort of a crunch, like I'm talking about, where they have to sell off things and the price moves to the downside on silver and it goes down anywhere substantial, that the real rich people out there are going to buy it up at that bottom price. And so if you're waiting for that, you're the average guy out there and you're saying, I'm going to get some physical when the price hits the rock bottom price, you might not be able to obtain any at that point. That's when it might all disappear. And then on the other side, when it goes up to the moon, you'll be sitting there and you're not going to be a bag holder. So I wouldn't count on saying, hey, I'm going to buy it when it's at its lowest price, lowest ebb. And we might be putting in the lowest prices right now, to tell you the truth. So I would say that the smart thing to do is, if you've got some silver, hang on. Wait this out. This is going to go really hot in a little while. It's going to make a rocket shot to the moon. So hang on. Be patient with this market. And I know you've been patient a long time. You've been waiting a long time. But you just got to wait it out a little bit longer, and you're going to get your payday, guys. You're going to get your payday. Anyway, enough talk about silver today. Gold today. Let's take a look at the price of gold. And we're looking at down $1.50. So let's take a look now at the stock market. 10 points up on the S&P 500 at 41.28. And the Dow Jones is up 90 points at 34,039 on the Dow Jones. Taking a look at crude oil, it's at 77.55. It's down almost $1 today. Crude oil's seen a lot of volatility lately. Bonds and rates, we're looking at a mixed bag. But we're looking at falling yields on the 10 years at 3.59 and the U.S. 30 years at 3.63. It's fell 7 basis points on the 30 year, 3.9 basis points on the 10 year. And looking at the dollar index, it's at 102.98. And the dollar is dropping today. It's a really tough world to deal with right now, guys. You got to prepare yourself on so many fronts. And becoming your own central bank and holding physical gold and silver is a really good thing to do and prepare. That's one way of preparing. But the other way of preparing too is you got to prepare for any kind of emergency situation that's going to also occur. You've got to have a little medical kit with medicines in it. You've got to have food and water put away for yourself. Wouldn't hurt to have a few tarpaulins put away. Those cheap tarpaulins that you buy, you know, those at the dollar store. They used to sell them at the dollar store anyway. What are they, $2 or $3 a piece or something? You know, 6x8 size tarpaulins. Wouldn't it's not a bad idea to have a basis to your food supply. Cheap things like I can name them off for you. Dried foods that you can put away for yourself. Things like rice, things like dried beans, dried lentils, dried chickpeas. Things like dried oatmeal is one of my favorites. Things like that, you know, that could last you for a long run, because it might be a long run that you're caught having to feed yourself and not have any availability to grocery stores and stuff. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit. Thank you for listening to my report, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.